All right, here we go.
Let's do this.
Welcome to another episode of the Flag Stays Down podcast. Matt, we're back after a week off. Life happens and all that, but different week, same Chelsea. How you
You're
doing?
not wrong. You are not wrong about that, my friend. No, things are good. Just been very busy with trying to survive winter illness season 2025, which seems to be kicking everybody in the teeth this year. So yeah, just kind of going through that, and then work has been pretty chaotic. So just grinding a lot and just working a lot of long hours. But yeah, it's just kind of the nature of it. But other than that, I mean, everybody's doing good. So can't really complain. I was actually able to sit down and watch a Chelsea game for the first time in what feels like months. So I was pretty stoked about that. And luckily, I haven't missed anything apparently. So all's the same. And yeah, it's just good to be back and chatting it up with you.
It's
How are
it,
you?
it, it's good to see Chelsea play on a weekend. We played freaking Fridays and Mondays and Tuesdays. Like, man, we got to work during the week.
Yeah. Yeah, we have jobs. These tiers aren't going to drown themselves. Like we need something to help us with that. So we have to pay bills somehow.
Right. No, but I'm good. Had a little bit of a family thing last week, but back to normal around here. Uh, you know, Wife's got me building cabinets and putting in light fixtures and built an island that I'm sitting at right now. It's Matt, I'm turning into you, is what I'll say.
I take that as a compliment or not, I'm not sure. But I'm I know you messaged me about putting in a light fixture. Proud dad moment right there. I obviously for those that listen, I love doing all that stuff. And helping Collins with some of his projects. So it's makes me feel good to know that I'm not just spewing bullshit all the time. Like somebody's actually listening to some of the stuff that I'm saying. So it's always encouraging.
Well, some people are not listening to people's stuff over and over again, and that would be seemingly Chelsea players. Hey, maybe don't throw the game in the tank after going up 1-0, but gosh, was it like 9 matches in a row that's happened? I don't even know where to start. I mean, hey, Enzo Fernandez scored. Shout out to Enzo, all the Enzos, Maresca, Gross, all the Enzos. Um, but of course, and then of course the dagger had to come in like the 85th minute. Where do you want to start, Matt?
Um, well, I started in the fetal position watching this game, and I don't think I ever really got out of it. It it is it is just very difficult to watch a team that can turn Jekyll and Hyde in the blink of an eye. Um, I was perplexed by the lineup. Like that really threw me off. And I know I've made this concern about what happens when you play Gusso and James together. How is that whole thing going to work? I didn't like it one bit. I think there was a lot of stuff that got lost. Reese looked lost to me out there. I don't think he knew kind of what to do. A lot of times he was kind of looking back, like, am I supposed to be there? Is Malaguso there? Like, do I? He looked just out of place and uncomfortable, which is not something we're used to seeing from Reese. Gusto just rough. That's kind of the nice way to put it. I thought he did not have a good performance. To me, the only bright spot was Pedro Neto. I was happy to see somebody, we always make a joke, somebody care. He was somebody that cared. And so I was very impressed with his performance, seemingly willing the front line and just by himself. Um, I was impressed with him. the I just don't know where we go from here if, we are looking at kind of a five at the back, that inverted wing back-ish thing, whatever you call it, in this lineup did not work. Um, it the overall thing, one of the biggest takeaways I had from this is we look dead, like dead at the end of the match. And Villa looked fresh and ready to go. They were still getting after it. And one of the things that I thought about is we always push so many guys forward. When you have seven guys that are essentially going box to box for a full 90, you're not going to be able to sustain that. And I feel like that's where we get caught out a lot. And that's one of the things is there were so many counter opportunities that Villa had. A lot of them, yes, we were able to get back and handle, but it's the fact that we constantly have to bust our ass to get back because we push so much forward. And it's always one or maybe two passes that cut right through our press, our midfield. It's always that combination. It's either one good pass or two quick passes, and they are through 75% of our team. And now we're in this sprint all the way back, and that's draining, right? Like, yes, these individuals train, but they don't train full sprints for 90 minutes. Like, that's just unrealistic. And so you see that at the end of the match when you have a lot of these people who are tired and just exhausted and gassed. Well, when you're running seven people box to box for 90 minutes, you're always going to have that. So the more that I look at this system, the more that I see flaws than positives. And yes, it's very easy to see that now, given the perception, because we're not in a good run of form. It's easy to spot the negatives. But even so, when we were still scoring goals, we were still conceding. And that hasn't changed. The only thing that's changed is we are not scoring as much. Given the fact that we do create chances and we do have good opportunities, we are not clinical in front of goal. And I know people will say, well, Nico's not there. I don't put Nico and clinical in the same sentence in a positive way. I don't think that's a shock to anybody. I would not consider Nico a clinical striker, at least not yet. I think he could get there, but he's not there yet. It's But it's not just Nico. Like, other people have to do their part. And right now it seems very stagnant. That left side of the pitch needs a lot of work still. And I just, there are still so many questions. And the more I watch Chelsea, the more questions I have about what we're doing and where we're trying to go to.
See, and I was more impressed with the lineup. We've been in a bad run of form. The knock on Maresca was, always set in his ways. He's inexperienced. He has his one system. He's just going to stick to it. Um, you know, five at the back, interesting. We're having defensive woes. Throw five back there. Have Reese, basically function as another number six when in attack. Let Malo Gusto bomb forward, which is where I think he's more comfortable. I'm okay with that. And then you look at the attack, and okay, we don't have a striker, which we're going to get to at some point in this pod. Um, so what do? You got Neto and Nkunku both running down the left. I was intrigued by that, and it almost paid off a couple times. Those two down the left. Now, again, Nkunku, I'm sure we're going to get to at another point. He didn't have a great game overall. But I thought for 55, 60 minutes, it worked really well. My my issue is more of a bigger picture issue. And that's, what the hell are we doing on a recruiting front? Matt, you talked about not being able to do a full 90. It's because all this depth we thought we don't have because we've either sold, loaned, or injured them. Look at what Villa was able to bring on. Marcus Rashford off the bench, Bulgard off the bench. Leon Bailey off the bench. Daniel Malin off the bench. We had Jaden Sancho. And that was basically all that was on the bench. It, you can't expect when you're in, playing on multiple fronts to compete with 15 and a half guys. It makes January look even more of a shit show
Mhm.
than what it already was.
Yeah. To me, and so that was the thing about, and that was the thing even I talked about January is like, we need these people. Yes, they might not be starters. Yes, people might be frozen out. Fine. But when you get into these competitions where you have to start playing your A squad more and more, and let's not forget, you have to keep putting out an A squad for the Premier League now because you're still trying to get into the Champions League. So you can't be mixing a bunch of lineups, have your A team and your B team anymore. We're getting to the point where it's all A team and nothing else. And so what do? You get rid of Disasi, you get rid of Viega, Chilwell, which I knew the writing was on the wall. We've talked about that, but he is still a serviceable option. And even even if we don't keep these, and even if they don't play, fine. They're all, from what I can tell, at least Dasasi and Chilwell, they're all pretty good locker room guys. Who do you have in that locker room now that you would look to and say that person is a leader? Given the current roster, who would you say that we have that is an actual leader?
We've only
I
got
can't
two.
I can't think of one. I can't think of one who I would say, yes, they are a leader. That is who I would consider a leader. I can't think of one right now. And that's the problem is going back to your point and not to jump in and kind of steal your thunder because you might be going to this, but where's the experience that we so desperately need and that we are begging for? Like, do we like are we saying that experience is not needed anymore? We can just trust kids to go out there and just make this stuff happen. Who's our oldest player right now?
Tosin,
Lee Tosin, and he's what, 28,
6.
26. Okay. What were you doing at 26? Like you're asking, and let's keep in mind, he just came to the team this summer. He's been here for 6 months, and you're going to expect him to lead Chelsea? Stop. This whole concept of lottery tickets and everything, it only works if you have pieces in place that can properly lead these kids to where they need to go. You don't have any leaders on this team right now. Whatever quote unquote leaders you did have before, you got rid of them. To me, Maresca is not a leader. He is somebody who relies on the players to help lead, which I'm fine with. But he has nobody to help him on this front right now. There is, again, I would not look at anybody out on the pitch and say they are a leader.
Yeah, and the only two that come to mind for me are Reece James, though, we haven't seen enough of him on the pitch or off the pitch for that matter to see how he's a leader, other than being the longest tenured, Cobham guy, all that. Enzo Fernandez is the other one that I can think of, but how much of that is just passion on the pitch versus, is he leading this team in training, anything like that? I don't know. It, I watched this match and it just kind of solidified what has been in my head of, there's that meme of the drawing of the horse, and then you get to one end of the horse and it's like a little kid drawing.
Mhm.
The back of the horse and the front of the horse for us were drawn by a 5-year-old. The midfield is fine. I have no problem with the midfield. Moises Caicedo having a fantastic season. Enzo Fernandez, fantastic season. The rest are injured and they don't do anything. But when those two are on the pitch, it is fuego. It's fire. No help behind them, no help in front. And these sporting directors gave us four, they said judge us in four windows. It's been four windows now, and we don't have we don't have anything to back up, the kids that we're throwing out there.
We have an all-worldy loan or sell starting 11. That's what we have. It's and some of them, yes, justified. I completely understand a lot of them, but some of them, why are we getting rid of them? Why are we getting rid of like I said, a Disasi, somebody who went through the shit for a couple of years and was arguably our best defender, right? Last season, I would argue he was probably our one of our best defenders. Or maybe it was the season before, but in any event, it doesn't make sense. Chilwell also, he has been good. I would say good. I wouldn't say great, but he has been good. Um, and again, he was what, 26, 27, something like that, maybe 28, but still you could argue at a very good point in his career. I, Carney, right? What's going on with him? We saw glimpses of what he could be, and now we're saying, oh, he's not in the picture. Bullshit. I would have much rather seen Carney on the left than Christopher Nkunku today, or whenever the match was. I would have much rather seen that. So many questions about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the other one would be, who's approving this? Are these Maresca decisions or are these Bully Code decisions? I don't know who's making the final call on this stuff, but that really needs to be evaluated and looked at.
I think that's even hard to get any kind of pulse on because some of these guys just joined in the summer. So were
Hmm.
they Maresca signings or were they Maresca droppies? I don't think they can be both in a matter of 6 months.
Right.
Joe Felix comes to mind.
Hmm. Who is doing well. He's at Juve, right? Or AC Milan.
AC Milan.
He's been doing pretty well at AC Milan since he made that switch.
And I don't. Romelu Lukaku ruined Serie A for me. I think anyone can do anything in Serie A. I think I could go and score 10 goals in Serie A.
Yeah, there's just a lot of questions and we are never going to get answers. I think that's probably the biggest thing is, we want transparency, right? As fans, that's all we want. We want to know what's going on behind the scenes. We're getting none of that. And it's very frustrating. Like we had an idea of what the model was and blah blah blah. And I was just flipping through Facebook today and I saw a reel and it's like, yes, you talked about the model and it was somebody talking about the ownership group. You talked about the model, and this is the model. Well, guess what? The model right now is not working because we are we are putting ourselves in a position where, okay, well, let's see where we are in 5 years. Right? I think that's kind of been the number, right? I would say 5 years. Okay, so you're buying a bunch of 17-year-olds. Let's see where they are when they're 21, 22, 23 years old. By that point, I would seriously question, are we even going to be in the Premier League at this point? We keep loaning out all these people and, selling off a bunch of what I would consider leadership components for what? Like we're not getting the results. We're seeing just in a very short amount of time, I would say a month of how much we're like, oh, we could actually like really use some of these people, right? Trev went down early in the game, so Tosin had to come in. Was Achimpong the other center back that we had if something happened?
Yep.
Okay, so now with Trev out, now you're looking at running Levi, Tosin, who I would say has dipped a little bit since his kind of spike over the last few months. And then what Achimpong is what, 18?
Yeah. And Body Shield coming back from injury, I think, for the next match.
Which who knows what that's going to do? Who knows what he's going to look like? Because we've seen him come back from injury before and it was rough. So what are we getting? And it's just constant questions. And we just don't have answers, and that's probably the most frustrating part of this whole thing.
Well, and you look at which parts of Blueco are succeeding because there are some successful sides within Blueco. It's the women's team and Strasbourg. They're not a Champions League club by any stretch of the imagination, but they were a relegation threatened club before Blueco, and now they're strongly mid-table. Well, those are those are the divisions of Blueco that aren't run by Winstanley, Stewart, and Baghdad and Bali. They don't have any involvement in those three.
And so, yeah, it's great if you look at the little components, but guess what? Your main job, your main component is failing right now. I would flat out say it is failing right now. And it seems like there is no attention being put on your star, right? This is your gem. There is no attention being put on it. That's the way that it looks right now. It looks like we're just trying to maintain financial stability, and that's about it. And all this talk of, oh yeah, let's see where we are in 5 years. I don't I have a hard time looking forward to seeing where we are in 5 years based on the current situation now.
Yeah, and I got nothing, man. You you hit it on the head right there. Um, so one of the things talking about Blueco and Strasbourg and all that, Philip Jorgensen with a howler, not great for a guy that we switched starting keeper to. Um, I was saying even back in the conference league group stage, like this guy isn't it. Like he doesn't look confident in himself, and he had some good saves against Villa, I'll say, but never looked confident in his box. We we loaned out Georgi Petrovic, who was our starter last year, to Strasbourg. Uh, he's sixth in Liga 1 in save percentage. He's tied for fifth in clean sheets. He has more clean sheets than we do as a club this year. I know, Liga 1 versus Premier League, it's a completely different animal, but it's another decision where it's, hey, is this a Maresca decision or is this a club decision? I don't know, but Matt, can we survive the season with Jorgensen in goal? Or I mean, I know Sanchez isn't much better, but if you had to choose between the lesser two evils, which would you choose?
I don't think it's a lesser of two evils. I think it's just two evils. Uh, so I, I will be very honest with you. As soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, Collins and I are going to go to war tonight. We're going to hash it out between Jorgensen and Sanchez. So I don't know if we're going to get to that point, but here is my here is my argument as far as backing, not necessarily backing Jorgensen, but making a case for we shouldn't make a switch immediately. So my case would be yes, Jorgensen's was bad. How many other times have we seen Sanchez do stuff, not necessarily from a shot stopping perspective, but from a, hey, I'm going to pass it right to the opposition just outside the box and let's see what happens. So, yes, Jorgensen's, it looks worse, hands down. But it's just which mistake do you want to fall on? And to me, it could have easily happened to Sanchez as far as he could have made one of his errant passes to the opposition. And keep in mind, Villa did what I thought to be a pretty good job on their high press. I thought they were pretty good and pretty effective. Now imagine Sanchez being able to try and distribute in that. I think he would have struggled, and I think that there would have been definitely one or two passes that could have led to a goal. So either way you look at it, I think the probability for a goalkeeper error, whatever the error is, I think it's the same between the two. It's just Jorgensen's looked a lot worse because that is a shot that should be stopped. But again, we've also seen Sanchez do his thing of errant passes and then pretty much leaving the defense out to dry and he can't recover and stop the goal. So we've seen it both ways. It's just perception of how one looks versus the other. That being said, I don't think this is the time to switch them because I don't think it matters who is in goal right now. I really don't. You could put Gaga, you could put Jordy out there, you could put my boy Bentinelli out there. I think anybody you put between the sticks right now is shit out of luck because they have a defense that is in shambles. No matter what pairing is out there of center backs or even right back. We know Cucurella's got left pretty secured. It doesn't matter who's out there. The defense is just shoddy in general. And going back to my previous comment, I think that has a lot to do with the amount of people that we push forward and leave ourselves exposed to a quick 1-2 passes, and then they're already past our attacking. They're already past our attacking level and our midfield level because our midfield plays so high. I think 2 passes, boom, you're already through. They have numbers going forward, and our defense is trailing back, and our midfielders are trying to bust their ass back. We're already at a disadvantage. So I don't know. I don't think it matters who you put back there right now.
I can see that argument. Absolutely. Um, I thought you'd be a little bit more of a staunch defender of Jorgensen. I was surprised by that. Um, so this might be a completely in my head hypothetical person, perfect world kind of thing. I think you can fix or work around Sanchez's issues more than you can do it for Jorgensen. Jorgensen, like I've said all season, has been timid in the box. He doesn't go out and attack the ball. He doesn't go out and collect the ball. Doesn't command his own area. And so things like this are going to happen. Being reactionary instead of proactive is not a great trait in a goalkeeper. And he's young. That may come with experience. But just like at all times at Chelsea over the last 25 years, we don't have time. Sanchez does those things. Sanchez is a better shot stopper. I think you tell Sanchez, hey, if you want your spot back, you do all the things that you were doing between the sticks. But when you get that ball, you just boot it downfield. You don't worry about playing out from the back. That's not your concern. You just boot it and let Pedro Neto run and go get it. You let God, I don't even know, Caicedo run into somebody, knock him over, and get that ball. That fixes Sanchez's issue. Jorgensen's issue is going to take years and years and years of experience. Again, I don't think we have time. There was that leak from a real shitty source. So it was like Team Talk or something like that about Palmer's contract, his new contract. He just signed having a release clause if they don't make the Champions League. Okay, well now there's stakes. It's not just, oh, well, we're improving, we're in the Europa League now. It's okay, well, it's Champions League or bust. Otherwise, we're losing, a $250 million man for however much that release clause is. I think you need to make the switch. I don't think there's a good option. Fuck, start Bettinelli. I don't care. But if I had to pick between the two, I think Sanchez is a better bet as long as you're telling him, do not worry about passing the ball.
So I I understand the point that you're making. I think it's and I think we both know it's probably a little bit more than just boot the ball wherever. I think we know that. We've seen his positioning be suspect at times. His decision making when it comes to when to attack, when to stay put, it's also been somewhat questionable. So but I do get the point that you're making. That's the biggest perception that we have right now is that he can't distribute a ball. to save his life. He couldn't find a Chelsea player if it was only Chelsea players on the pitch. That's kind of where we're at. So I get that. I just the difference that I see, and this again, I'm going to tie this back to our conversation with Bowley and everybody. You don't have a veteran presence for goalkeepers. Sanchez is supposed to be your veteran, right? He's got Premier League experience for what, 3 years, 4 years, something like that. He's done it. He's played, so he should know what to do and how to handle that. And he still doesn't. So it's like, is this just the ceiling? Have we already hit the ceiling for Robert Sanchez? We might have already. And that's the thing. So do you then start looking at Jorgensen and be like, well, if we're already playing the kids, then why not play another one and just see what the hell happens?
Now, let's turn to another guy who, you know, has been in and out of the lineup, and I think is in the lineup now because the manager's hand is kind of forced with injuries, and that's Christopher Nkunku. Again, looks like a big old nothing in this one, and I think the glaring moment is Cole Palmer kind of dancing out of trouble and then laying off what would be a perfect through ball in on Emi Martinez's goal, and then Nkunku gets caught flat-footed, makes that pass look like shit. Um, Kind of the story of his last couple weeks. Does he have a future here?
I still think he does. And the concerning part for me is if you're missing a striker, right? We're missing both of our strikers. He can fill that role. Why is he going out on the left? Now, keep in mind, I have an issue with the left. My biggest issue is the fact that Enzo also tracks on the left side. He is not necessarily your attacker. You don't have Cucurella bombing down the left side either because he's playing that inverted wing back position or that third midfielder, whatever he's doing, right? So you don't have him down there. So you have Nkunku and Enzo pretty much operating on the left. Enzo's not going to take anybody one on one. We know that. So that leaves Nkunku pretty much 1v2 a lot of times. That being said, I did see like a really good handful of runs that he made. And the one I'm thinking of is specifically around Neto when one of the times he was bombing down the right, which he did considerably well. And Nkunku was in, like clearly in, and Neto decided to go for goal instead. I think there was another one where Palmer or Enzo, I think, just didn't get his head up, but he had either Palmer or I think it was Nkunku on the left, like again, wide open and just didn't make the pass. I think he's smart enough and intelligent enough and good enough to make all these runs. If nobody's finding you, you essentially become useless. And when you're already isolated on that left side, because we didn't go to the left a ton because Neto was having a lot of success on the right. But when we did go down the left, it was stagnant. It was just left to Nkunku to try and do something, which was inevitably a short pass, either back to Cucurella or to Enzo. You don't really give him an option to be kind of free and just moving around, and that's what he's good at. He's good at those kind of open positions and being able to play a little bit freer. Putting him on the left doesn't help anybody, doesn't help him, doesn't help Chelsea at all. I would have much rather seen Nkunku up top and Jadon Sancho on the left, because Sancho at least I trust to take people on and create something out of nothing. I don't have that same confidence with Nkunku, and put him in a more natural position. And again, with the lineup, you put Reece in the midfield. Don't fully understand that, and then you put Nkunku on the left. It- some of those things really just had me questioning what was actually happening. At times, I didn't know if Enzo was playing as a striker or not. because he was that far up the pitch. So when I talk about having so many people forward and then those people having to track back going box to box for 90, that's a prime example of it right there. I think he does have a future at the club if he's used correctly. I don't think Maresca has found a way to use him correctly.
Yeah, and I agree with that. Um, I don't think he has a position within the system that we play, that suits. There's no position that suits him. His ideal is playing behind the striker, playing off the striker, almost like Timo Werner, right? He wasn't an out and out striker, not a winger. He, he he can be a body there, absolutely. But his position is playing off of a big bodied striker, somebody who, holds up the play. And Kunku's the same way. And I think the closest we have to that is Cole Palmer's position. We know that that's not changing anytime soon. And I know that you need to play someone at striker. We don't have anybody at striker. And I just think of all my years of playing FIFA, or sorry, EAFC or whatever the hell it's called now. Oh, okay, that guy is a forward in general. Like he's got the blue next to his position. He can play striker if I need it. This isn't a video game. The guy's not comfortable there. He's not comfortable on the left. We don't have a spot for him. João Felix was a better fit. João Felix can play the wing. João Felix can play in Palmer's position. João Felix can be a false nine striker. We loaned the wrong guy. I think Maresca, unless this season tanks to the point of, we're finishing 13th or 14th, Maresca's here for the next year or two. I don't think that means anything positive for Christopher Nkunku. I think Bayern come back in the summer, and he goes back. He goes back to Germany. I don't think he has a position in this team.
Yeah, I think it's going to be so. I think it's going to be Nkunku's decision. I don't think it's going to be a Maresca call because I think Maresca was ready to pull the trigger on him leaving for the points that you said. However, I need to put some blame on Maresca for not getting the most out of his players to this point. That's how I look at it. You have so many options and weapons, and you're still not getting the best out of them. That to me, that's a problem. That means you are not doing your job. You are picking and choosing the players that you have at your disposal, which anybody would be jealous of the players that we had at our disposal to start the season. Let's be completely honest about that. And he's just like, oh, how can I take these pieces and put them into my system where I think there has to be a give and take of, well, based on what I have, what system is going to get the best out of all the players that I have at my disposal? I think he's very one-dimensional in that regard. And granted, I know he changed the system. It looked different. Fine. That's probably the first time I've really ever seen that out of him. But he's still set in his system and just trying to find pieces to put in there based on what he has instead of trying to also reciprocate and find a system that works given who he has available to him, especially now after January. It's got to be a two-way street. And I think we're seeing maybe the I wouldn't call it the downside, but we're starting to see some of the flaws with this whole inverted wingback system. And they're becoming a lot more prevalent as teams are, everybody gets two cracks at the same team, right? You get the first one and you get the home, you get the away. Everybody's starting to get their second go around with us, and they're identifying, oh, this is what we have to do to beat this system because we know Maresca is not going to change it. To me, that's a flaw of the manager, and I think that that's something that I would like to see addressed. Do I know if it will be? Don't know. Are we just going to go out and get players that fit Maresca and his system? Possibly, but then at that point, are you really getting, are you actually going to be getting individuals that you want for Chelsea, or are you just getting players for the manager to fit a system? And I have a hard time trying to grasp that entire concept.
Well, that's been the tug of war for the last however many years at Chelsea.
Hmm.
For a while it was the managers have say, and then we end up with Danny Drinkwater and Tiemi Bakayoko and all these guys who fit a system that manager got fired 4 years ago for.
Yep.
Um, and then there was a switch, and then you have a bunch of guys who don't fit a system, and then the manager doesn't work. I don't know how much collaboration is going on between Maresca and the sporting directors and Boley and Iqbali, but I would like to think that there's some. It would help. Um, but Matt, we talked a little bit pre-pod, and I know that Parker, who couldn't be on tonight, loves keeping track of this. But you know, we're getting to the point now where you look at Poch versus Maresca. I know you guys were maybe not staunch, but you guys were from Poch supporters. Um, where do you feel we're at now? A year, a little less than a year after Poch's sack.
So, and granted, season's not over, right? So things can definitely change. And I know Parker throughout the minus 12 number, which I'll be honest, I was surprised to see that. But what I will say is I think that Maresca caught the Premier League maybe by surprise in the first 6 months. Again, with that inverted wingback system, right? Like, yeah, he was tearing up in the championship, but we weren't playing championship teams, right? It was a new system. It was very attack minded. And it was something that not a lot of teams have seen before. I think we caught them by surprise. And now that, like I said, teams are having their second go around, they understand more what we're doing and how to defend it. That being said, I look at this through a lens of where did you start, or how did you start and how did you finish? Pochettino started like shit, finished on a high note, I would say. We finished on a good run of form. Got all the way back to the sixth. Right now, Maresca started high, right? Started great. We were second at one point during the season. Now the back half, we're starting to slip and slide further and further. So my overall question to you, Mr. Collins, would be this. If you take Poach and Maresca out of it, if I just give you two managers and say, okay, year to year, who would you keep versus who would you let go? You have somebody that started red hot and they trailed off as the season finished, or somebody who started poorly and then finished strong to end the year. Who would you keep around?
I've actually put some thought into this because I figured at some point this conversation was coming. Um, I was never convinced of Poch, and it's not a you know started poor, came on hot at the end thing, because I think a lot of that is BS. We won what, our last 5 games, 6 games, something like that, and they were all against teams who had nothing to play for. Whereas we had a chance to sneak into the Europa League, we had a chance to sneak into the Champions League. If I remember right, before that run, we lost to Arsenal like 6-0, 4-0, something like that. Like it wasn't good enough. I'm looking at the manager the same way I look at players. Poch is in the middle of his career. He's in the prime of his managing career. We got out of Poch about as much as we're going to get out of Poch. I think, about that level that we were at is what you would have gotten out of him this year too. Maybe fifth, sixth place. Maresca is on a 5-year contract, first year in the Premier League. This is his second coaching stint ever. There's growth. Just like baseball, you got to react. Player comes out, starts hot, then the league reacts, then the player reacts, then the league reacts, then the player reacts until there's that balance kind of found. That's what we're going to get out of Maresca. I think we saw the first sign this week that he is trying to change strategy, to try to swing things back in his favor. Um, I think there's more potential, and well, potential is a trigger word at Chelsea right now. I think there's more potential with Maresca, and I hate that I'm the one who's like, "Ooh, runway, give him runway, got to give him space to breathe." But I think you do. I like what I see. I like what I have seen over the course of the season. It's an extended rough spell. All rough spells come to an end, unless you're Frank Lampard. Um, so I guess to answer your question, um, neither. But in this scenario, I'm taking Maresca. I think there's more upside there, whereas Pochettino is a lower ceiling, higher floor.
Right. But if you take our two managers out of it and you just look at a season, started poorly, finished strong, started poorly. Who's more likely to keep their job going into the next year?
Oh, okay. Well, if I'm answering that,
Yeah. Who's the more likely? And again, this could easily change, right? It could just be an extended rough spell and things could get turned around and then, this isn't even a conversation, right? But just looking at it right now, started poor started poor versus finished strong, and then finished strong versus slipping to finishing poor. If this is if we're operating under the same lens that Bully Company has, saying this isn't good enough or your data doesn't do what it wants or whatever, to me, if they're looking at numbers, who would you rather have? To me, it would be the person that finished stronger at the end of the year. And then that to me is the runway for next season, right? You carry all of that, growth and positivity into the next season versus you finish poorly to end the season. Then you have to try and revamp everything going into the next season with a new manager when you've already got some things that are set in place. So it's the difference of growing on what you've done versus having to completely clean the slate and start over again. That's kind of where I'm at as far as what I can see right now. If this continues, I think it's a very valid conversation. If this gets turned around, I don't think there's any conversation.
so one thing I've seen come up in the news quite a bit is the world countdown clock or doomsday countdown clock. I think it's 11:57 right now or something like that. Uh, Matt, what's Enzo Maresca's doomsday clock at right
If I'd like to say if I was Bullyco, but I have no idea what they're doing, so I have no insight into anything. Um, but like I said, if we're operating under the same lens, I would say he needs to finish the season strong. Otherwise, there are going to be a lot of questions.
now? Very diplomatic answer. I would agree. I would say 11:45 on that clock. You got some time. Got some time to figure it out, but if you don't, that we're ticking ever closer.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I got to ask you. No poll was run, and I think there's a couple decent candidates. Matt, who's your man of the match this week?
Pedro Neto. I don't think it's even close.
And it's too bad we really didn't get a chance to talk about him the whole time. Yeah, no, he was good. Played a little bit through the center, played on the right, um, had some great runs, some great shots. I got to go Enzo Fernandez, man. That it's not even like, yeah, I know he scored the goal, but you can just see walking off the pitch every match, this guy gave it his all every single match. He is dejected when we lose, and I don't know, that strikes a chord with me. So I guess that makes him my post match man of the match. So I'll go Pedro Neto.
He gets the Matt Maciejewski Try Hard Award. How about that one?
There we go. I like it. All right. Well, Matt, I think that pushes us somewhat against the hour here. Any closing thoughts?
Clock's ticking.
I like it. Well, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on socials at Flag Down Pod. Matt, hopefully, knock on wood, on my new island that I just built. We're talking about 3 points next week.
Looking forward to it.
Cheers.
Later.